extremism and terrorism. So since that conference, I think Binsar, my friends,
Yes.
who is now becoming a professor in theology and also a pastor, invited you to our Asia Pacific Youth Conference in 2006. So that's what happened.
Right.
You met Tung An, you met everybody, and
Oh
then
my
you
gosh.
and then you committed yourself to be with us in Jakarta with all the students, and of course you invited the business people in Jakarta, and we were talking about corruption, like wow, a systemic corruption in our country. So that make us thinking, okay, we should do something. So that what make me continue working with the Initiative of Change, and of course now I'm still with Initiative of Change, working for trust building, connecting Muslim and Christian to be friends, to heal the historical wounds, and of course to respond the country's problem, especially the violence, the corruption, for young people to have the value, to have the integrity and leadership with the values, I think. Yeah. So thank you, Sela. It's amazing life story.
It's amazing to see what all of you all have gone through and what you all have done with this work. So it's really nice. Is Wazin around? Wazin around?
Not yet. Not yet. He's not.
Okay, right. So let me just put out there, the reason that I started talking about let's do a remix. All of you in some way or another have been together with this journey in your respective areas. But I also know that all of you also feel that you could go deeper. But of course, all of you have been on your respective journeys. Many of you have not just grown up, but all of you have also deepened your practices in different ways in your different spaces. You've also been leaders in your own communities, and obviously sharing your works with them and doing a lot of other works as well. Many of you have got your own families and got your 2 kids, 3 kids, and a family in tow. So amazing what you all have pulled through in this period. I decided to do this reach out in part because as learning organization and the 5 disciplines, there is also, just like IFC and the IOFs and so on, there is also a global body for the 5 disciplines. It's called the Society for Organizational Learning. I have been a part of them, usually more of as a member. And I think it took maybe the last 2-3 years where I got a little bit more closer to the different bodies, especially in Singapore. In Africa, they're just about setting up, but I've also been in touch with Soul Global. So they've heard a little bit about what I do and some of the works that I've done. And so I've also been getting a little closer with the Soul Global body as well. And more recently, in the Middle East and Africa, there is a setup of a similar chapter, but for the Middle East and Africa. And it is in its infant stage. There are pockets of people in different parts of Africa who've heard about Peter Senge or the 5 disciplines. Perhaps they are doing some practice, but they would like to have a community where they can actually meet and talk and learn from each other. So as part of building that community, I offered, just like what I did on the network, as well as with different parts of Asia, where we share different aspects of the 5 disciplines. Now, we won't be able to meet every day, we won't be able to meet every week, but at least on a monthly basis, I get onto it, or whoever who is part of that team come on for about an hour and a half, or 2 hours, and we share a discipline or a tool as by way of attracting people to come on board and get to know, because once they get to know what the work is, that's what attracts people to want to be part of the community. So we are thinking of building that. It's a new capability for Middle East and Africa. Now, as I did this, I was then thinking two things. One is, if the time allows and it works for you all to join in Middle East and Africa, that is one space you all can come in and join. But I suspect, given most of the sessions in Middle East and Africa is in the evening, which means it'll be your midnight, your 2 a.m.s in the morning, I'm thinking, since I'm already running this on a monthly or on a bi-weekly basis, what if I did the same thing for Asia? Now, Asia, all of you have very similar time zones, so it shouldn't be difficult. You just need to agree on when that would be. If it's, having it every week may not be something that is easy for everyone, but at least twice a month or once a month. And then we find what date that would be, and then we lock it into our calendars. Now, just like how with Middle East and Africa, usually it's a certain day of the month, and we know during that time we don't have any other events running during that time. So this is where I reached out to Rendell and Peter and Wahid in particular, to say, what if we were to organize a session for us to talk about it? And if we were to run this, what would it look like? So that was my reason for reaching out to you. What's my intention behind doing this? Here's where I'm going. Now, many of you know I have been in Africa for the last 10, 15 years. And my intention of being in Africa was, it's not simply teach the 5 disciplines, but to build up applications of the use of the disciplines in different contexts. So some of you, I may have already shared this with you. 2 years back, I did a case study for the government of Botswana here, where we tried to understand what has caused unemployment to persist. And it has become a case study, not only just for me, but even as Soul. And because of this, let me just sort of put it out there. I have actually offered within Soul Global to set up a research body at a global space so that we may take on global projects. All right. So my intention of doing these reach outs are to build capabilities in different parts of the world, understanding what the 5 disciplines are. It won't be done overnight, but it needs some level of persistence. But if it did, it would allow us to develop a lot of case studies using the 5 disciplines. The purpose of the case studies is 2 things. One is, if some other parts of the world is experiencing such issues, they may borrow the lessons from the case study to see how it may apply to them. That's 1. 2, it allows, as either practitioners or as coaches or as mentors, to showcase what the application of the 5 disciplines would look like. Does that make sense? Is that okay? So my reason for reaching out is in understanding and helping more of us understand the 5 disciplines, that we're able to develop case studies that others may benefit from, but may also use it as a showcase. So this is where I'm going to, and this is where I'm interested in doing that. I thought of Asia, given currently my work in Africa, the Middle East. There's some, well, we haven't developed work, but obviously we've built some relationship with certain persons in Europe. There is some talk in parts of South America where they also are interested in this work. And so I was also reaching out to Asia because sometimes global issues don't stop with a particular country or a particular region. It spans the whole globe as well. So having pockets of people in different parts of the world who can either understand what the works are, allow this work to go deeper, is an important part of this process and development. Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. And so, you know, my hope is that as we do these sessions, and if this interests you and we can develop case studies, Some of these case studies could be at organizational spaces. Some of it could be at a national spaces. We'll just have to stay open to the idea, say what emerges, what comes through. Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. All of you, of course, some of you may understand because you've seen me sort of being in that space for a while. But I'm also open to hear and also for the group to hear. What do you want to see? What is going to work for you? And what your hopes are? Okay, so I'm going to leave that space in a short while for any of you to come on board and share where your thinking is. I'm also open to the idea that, especially sometimes, because of timing or because of network connectivity issues, if we have to do certain countries differently from others, I'm open to the idea, or to have these sessions, have certain times open, and then we could have 2 or 3 rounds of these sessions so that if you missed one session, you can try and still join another group who's running that session. So that way you can still try and catch up and you're not locked in by a particular date or particular time. It is possible. Usually my Saturday afternoons, that's my time, and my Sundays are good for this. During the week, I'm still developing my other company, so it tends to get a little busy and it's a little hard to manage my time, but weekends are a bit easier for me. And the other option is my evenings, but Asia, it would be a bit tough, I understand, if it is my evenings. Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. I wanted to stay open to hear what you feel is important for you at your stage of your journey and what do you want to see. If you feel that, perhaps this is not for you at this point, don't feel, you cannot say that. You should be able to say that as well. We just want to get a feel of the group and decide, okay, how should we move with this group? So this is where I'm going with this. Okay. All of you are familiar with the 5 disciplines. Yes, if I say mentor models, if I say team learning, yes, if I say systems thinking, personal mastery, shared vision, yes, I see a lot of heads nodding. If this is a group who understands it. So I'm curious, what's important for you next? All right. Luca, whilst the others are thinking about the question, Luca is part of Soul Global, so I'd like to have him say a few words while you're thinking about the question. Luca has been on this journey with me. Of course, he's been on this journey much longer, but we met, I think, was it 2019? Or was it before that, Luca?
Yep, it was. We started with the project that Antonio had for the 2020 yes. To create a learning a learning plaza in Madrid, in Spain.
In Madrid,
finally.
Spain. By the way, Luca is from Italy, yes, and yeah. He's going through winter also, yes.
Yeah, a little bit. where I stay in front of a computer, the temperature now is around 9 degrees.
Oh.
They have a very wide home. Normally, I heat just a little bit of it during winter. So I start to learn how to survive in cold temperatures.
Now, Luca has been president of the Soul Global. He's been taken up leadership positions at Soul Global. So he's very familiar with the space. So yes, Luca.
Yep. I joined Soul Italy in 2012. I was one of the founders, and I was interested in those topics because my experience comes from industry. I work for a company producing plants for making synthetic yarn, and in that company we were completely crazy. We were completely out of what is a standard company. But what was the mind that was behind that company was to anticipate the problems, to analyze what was going to become a problem. And so I found myself very easy there, and I increase a sort of a natural attitude I had to anticipate problems. And I worked for them for 12 years, I guess. Then I stopped. And when I met Sol Italy, I discovered that other people were so strange like I was, because instead of being manager styles, there were people that was trying to understand what were the connection among the different elements of a system. And but at the same time, Sol Italy had a crisis, because we were for the most consultants, and when there are too many consultants, many times it happens that the private interest that goes against the community, and indeed it happened. And so
explosion.
it made
Child deaths are happening right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, the thing about the soul body, there are three main players. One are consultants, the other one are practitioners, usually leaders of organizations or persons who are aspirants or people who wants to develop their capability. And the third one is researchers. Usually if the other two is missing, you need a consultant to manage the consultants. So, because we become very inward looking.
Yeah,
Yes.
indeed, it happened. I've experimented, and mostly because many times consultants have a particular attitude that is, I want to learn the tool and I want to apply the tool, instead of experimenting in their bodies, in their experience, the lack of systems thinking, the 5 disciplines. And indeed, that is the situation that in part we are facing in Global Soul 2, because so far, at least in Europe, most of the people are consultants, and we have a little bit of lack of people that are practitioners. So my own experience is between being a practitioner and a consultant. And so I see the needs of both, but anyway, I see the lack of practicing, experimenting in yourself instead of applying on other people, because many times consultants remain outside the experience, while being a practitioner, you stay inside the experience. Maybe you are the most suffering, the people with the most of the pain, because you see that something goes wrong, and your feeling is strong toward a going beyond the problems. And so there is really a different attitude in those two kind of passionate for 5 disciplines. And what I want to do, my desire in Global Soul is to bring inside a consultant the experience of being a practitioner, because that can create a higher responsibility toward the groups, toward the community. And this is my engagement now.
Great. Just a quick introduction. Also, Peter is part of Soul Singapore. So he's wearing a few hats when he's being part of this group here. And you know, what Luca brought up is critical, particularly for Soul, and I'm sure it's also relevant for many of these bodies as well, that when you bring members into it, and Peter Senge, I mean, just so that Peter Senge would say, consultants is one part of this community. And if we don't bring in the organization and persons who are interested in the practice, consultants don't have your own issues. Your own issues are your personal issues, your family issues, your company issues, but you don't have a playground where you can practice the work. So as membership of SOUL, it's recommended there are these three players. There is the consultants. You could be, because you're a facilitator, you could be a strategy consultant, you could be a teacher, you could be a mentor. It's fine. Then you have a second group of people, which are your organizations. Now, as much as you may go in and consult with them, they also need to be part of this community, shaping the community, leading in as a practitioner, not as a consultant. All right, so that voice is very different from a consultant voice. And then the third voice is the voice of the researcher, particularly in two aspects. One is in the practice of system archetypes, meaning to say, how are the tools working in a specific context, and be able to document that, but also to be able to gather data, look for archetypes, and to be able to uncover the system archetypes. So that's your researcher space. Now, you can't just run ahead and be a consultant or be a practitioner, and you don't have these documentation, but also data management happening, particularly for SOUL, for the 5 disciplines, because you're talking about how are we as an organization learning, and those lessons as we learn can't just stay in our heads. It needs to be dropped down. It needs to be documented that others may learn. My hope and intention with building case studies is that we can develop a textbook. I've always said about I wanted to write a book, but increasingly I'm becoming clear that it's a textbook of case studies that can be used in a tertiary institution for leadership on the practice of the 5 disciplines. So Tuanan, your case study with Cambodia is definitely going to be one of them, all right, in that textbook. Likewise, there are lots of other examples. The practice that I've had in Botswana, I mean, the unemployment case study is a beautiful case study about how we use data to uncover system archetypes. And it's also going to be another case study in that textbook as well. So this is my journey. My journey is to be able to document them so that others may see how the practice looks like, but how they may also borrow that practice. Okay, so this is where I'm coming from. Anybody at this point wants to say something?
I can share something, Sheila.
Yes, Peter.
Yeah, okay. So please admit you all a quick introduction of myself. So like Randa, I left MINDEF, this Ministry of Defense, in 2006. So that's where I get to learn about learning organization. But I didn't really get excited about it in a different way until I left the organization when I have to do my practice here. So my involvement in learning organization comes in the later part of 2000s, when I start to work with the Singapore Police Force, training the facilitator. Because professionally, I'm actually focusing on 2 areas. I'm a professional facilitator, certified professional facilitator, as well as into leadership. So when police expand their learning organization back in the late 2000s, I trained all their LO facilitators in both LO as well as facilitation. I also did the strategic planning for the police force when they have a new commissioner. So that get me excited. Yeah. So over the years,
Which commissioner was this, Peter?
I can't remember his name, but he was the one that runs the
Juhi. Juhi.
I think so. That runs that power ministry. Yeah, he just retired last year. Yeah.
Okay.
But he's the one that did not like LO. Yes, he scraped LO in the police.
Yes.
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 But one thing that is interesting is the LO is quite deep-seated, and the Singapore Prison Services has brought it to a different level because of learning organization. They actually started the Yellow Ribbon Project, Captains of Life, and that is one of those projects that is also being copied worldwide. Like especially like Australia Prison Services. They actually copy the Captain of Lives very much. Yeah. So these are very good examples of how LO had transformed. If you look at the LO at a data level, right, it takes about 5 to 7 years before the transformation will come. So that's where I'm interested. So I'd like to then share three areas, but 3 level up. So it's a matrix. I hope I didn't draw it out, but I just want to describe. My interest in this work will be also in research, because I'm particularly interested in how transformation for private sector and non-profit sector, right? But in the areas of leadership as well as education. So on the level down, I'm interested in schools, and that's why I've also gone into system awareness. I've taken the course with Peter Sangi on compassionate system awareness. That's one of my journey. I'm trying to go into it. The second will be on education. Education for especially for children. That's my interest for this year and onwards. I'd like to craft up some sort of work to work with schools, especially those underprivileged schools. So I'm actually started to look at Sapa in Vietnam, and then Indonesia, some part of Jakarta. I've connected with some people, and we're slowly trying to brew out something, not quite yet, but bring out something. So that is a level. The second level down is leadership. I believe that first, when you tackle the education, bringing system thinking to them, all right, by the time they go into employment, they already have some sort of system thinking. All right, it's too late. That's why HR around the world find hard to get employment engagement statistics more than 26%, because it's too late. It's too late to change an adult when they go into employment, especially the millennium onwards. So there's 2 prongs. One is education, the other one is adult. So the other adult, I think, is the leadership. If the leadership really leads in any organization, right, it all takes a leadership change. When the leadership change, organization will change. So that's an important area. So I'm trying to work on that. And then lays on top of it, I'm trying to work on sustainability. I think sustainability is an important part of system thinking. So I'm also working on sustainability through the compass model, not so much of the ESG, but the compass model.
Did you mean environment, or when you said sustainability?
No, more of how do you sustain in system thinking, learning organization in an organization.
Okay.
That sort of area, yeah. But of course, it doesn't rule out farming, climate, and so on, yeah. But those are, I believe those are issue of leadership, not so much of methodology. I mean, there are a lot of farming technology around, right? But why can't it sustain? It's about leadership. Yeah, that's why I want to focus on that. Yeah. So 2 level, and then cutting across horizontally, I want to work on sustainability issue, education, and then what you call helping organization to grow. Yeah. So there's a cutting across. Yeah. So I hope to document the case. So Sheila and Luca know I actually focus on applying system thinking and learning organization application part. So the case will be interesting. So my own private sector examples will be, I work with an organization for 3 years. With the learning organization, I have helped to brought them up from bankruptcy to profit using LO. Yeah, so that's one. And then recently I worked with SMRT, the Singapore Mass Rapid on the leadership training too. So those are the cases. But I'd like to work on the education sector this year. Yeah, so I'm trying to work with international schools to look at the space, because they are more interested and they have the budget as well as the space to work on it. Yeah, government schools in Singapore are going very slowly. But actually, international schools are more space because of what we call IB program. IB program promotes system thinking at the both education and leadership level. Right. So in short, is a nutshell. I'm still trying to organize my thoughts, but this is roughly the angle I'm looking for. And then finally, at a personal level, right? I'm hoping that I could deepen my practice, sharpening the tools, and then when I look and listen to something going on straight, I could identify the models, especially the archetypes. and then looking at how to apply it in a very fast way. Why very fast way? My experience is if you don't catch the leader's attention within 30 minutes, you lose them. So that is my hope, that when I have a conversation, I want to capture them in 30 minutes. Otherwise, I lose them. Yeah, they will not be interested. Yeah, because leaders are
So Peter,
impatient.
yeah, Peter is a wonderful resource. I mean, he's been in the field, he's been with lots of people, he's been particularly taking these kinds of works to them. You know, if you want to learn how he's done it, I'm sure it's a wonderful resource. So talk to him, connect with him. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to help and assist. Yes.
For networking, I'm happy to connect because I actually stay in Vietnam for 7 years. I know Vietnam quite well. Yeah, I can be actually your tour guide in Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi also. Yeah. And I work with various organizations. I work with the government, the locals, and so on. So I have deep knowledge. In Middle East, I have been there for 3.5 years, so I also know Middle East very well because I used to be the ambassador for Oman for Singapore IE International. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah, in Jakarta, I know a bit in Jakarta because I do education program in Jakarta for 3 years. Yeah, so for networking, I do have a very broad network. Yeah, I'm currently also the board member for Singapore SOL, and also the president for Singapore International Association of Facilitator, but which I will relinquish in 2 months' time. Yeah, because I've already done 4 years, so it's time to move on. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
So
Wonderful.
yeah, I'm glad to connect. Yeah, and locally in Singapore for Randa and Wakit, I'm also quite connected to MVPC. So I used to be a volunteer with MVPC for social work, and I'm currently their trainer for a non-profit organization model, as well as also I'm a senior educator in IAL. Yeah. Not so much of my title, but more I'm saying that I'm able to offer you quite a lot of network to work together. I think network is very important. My experience is that you cannot work alone. You have to work through a network of people because they bring you connections. Yeah, working alone doesn't help. Yeah, it's the network that is important.
That's true. You listen to Peter, you think he has more than 24 hours, unlike us, you know. So he's just a ball of energy.
Maybe there's a reason why last 2 years ago.
24, but Peter has more.
No, but Sheila, just 2 years ago, I have a major heart surgery. Still a 10-inch cut here. You know, can you see the cut?
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow. Survivor.
That is partly also DNA. Yeah, because my parents both have heart issue as well as diabetes. Yeah, so I exercise 3 times a week, but it still doesn't help. Yeah, I do intermittent fasting for almost 10 years. It still doesn't help. Yeah. So just watch out for DNA. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for that.
Connect. I'm pleased to be any resource.
Peter, this is the community around there. I mean, all of these are part of the groups of people that, you know, we've been, you know, when I was in Singapore, I mean, that was way back in 2008. There is behind Wahid, there's also Jimmy and Ari, who's been part of the network, and there's a lot more behind it. I've lost touch with quite a few. Behind Huda, there's a lot of people. Behind Tuanan and Tam, there's a lot of people as well. So they're representing the tips of their respective icebergs. So that's what I would say. Rendell is also part of a tertiary institution where he's doing similar work. So there is a network. There are network of networks behind this group here. So it's a really wonderful group. I've over the years, although I've not been able to meet them in person, you know, we do chat once in a while and say, how are you? How are things? And we do keep in touch. What I want to do is, yes, I have been fairly busy from 2008 until about the mid-2012 because of my work with Botswana government. Then when I decided to stay on in Botswana, mainly because I wanted to get a good feel of the continent, but also this part of the world, I also set up a second organization that has kept me busy all the way Till recently, it's much better established. And I'll just put it out there for you why I decided to do the second organization is because, you know, you as a consultant, you stand outside somebody else's organization. And for me, the second organization was, what does that practice look like? What does that feel like? Particularly, you know, to me, being in Africa, it's a little bit like fish out of water. It's not the waters that I grew up with. So there's a lot of learning that is happening in this space. And for me, then the practice of the 5 disciplines in a different space was very important for me as well. So that's where it has kept me busy for the past several years, but a lot of things have been established. I've set up the food production side. We've established at least the type of food we want to produce and some of the processes involved. Recently, I back-ended into agriculture. So we're also producing seedlings, which farmers can then grow them into crops. So it's a totally different space. So a lot of it was a lot of journey, a lot of learning journey in this process about the process itself, but also learning about the industry and what works, who's who in the industry. It's been quite a journey. Recently, I also set up, my main focus is food manufacturing and food production, but branding is important if you want to develop that. And so I've also opened a culinary school. So we're still in the industry, but connecting with people in the industry through different processes. So I've been a little busy with all of that, but right now I would say I'm a bit better established. Things are running on their own. So that's why I want to give some time back again into this work and give it a bit more attention, a bit more dedication to it. So this opportunity with Middle East and Africa is happening. That's why I'm opening up also to you all as well. All right. Anybody wants to share where's your thinking about the 5 disciplines, about your practice of the 5 disciplines, about what you want, and where do you want to see this work happen? Or if it's not working for you, then feel free to say, yes, if it's not working for me, and why is that so? And where do you think this will, what does this mean for you? So this is where I wanted to use this space for us to listen to each other and then to figure out what could be some next steps for us.
I was about to say, it also sounds like you have 27 hours a day. But I think what we all really can learn from you was the basic routing of all the principles. I think that is where it's missing in even the few book as well as Peter Sami's part. I have a chance to speak to him just to share with you just last year in Jakarta. Yeah. So I asked him, did he leave because if you're following him, actually he's not very visible in SOL for quite some time. So he's into system awareness. So his message, I will have a conversation with him, it was that he thinks that it's important to bring that message back to the basic, which is education. I think partly because a lot of the the giants who have Motorani, I can't pronounce his name properly. Motorani, is it? Look at the Italian guru. He has just passed away, right? There are a few more who are in the very 70s, 80s. Yeah. So all these are people helming the world right now, including Margaret Whitley and so on. So if they don't pass on their knowledge, I think there will be a big loss, right? I mean, David Bohm was gone. He wrote his book on dialogue, but he didn't actually put into a practical terms. Yeah. So I think this journey is very important. Not that you're
How old is Peter now? Peter must be in his 70s, isn't it?
Yeah. I think he had crossed his mid-70s really. Yeah. So Sheila, I think this book is important. I think from the basic work. I'm not saying that you're very old, but I think it's important to capture the data. I think that's what is missing. And that's why compassionate system awareness is so focused on research. So if you look at the website, it has a very huge research branch right now. Yeah. So I think definitely is in the right direction.
Great. Just a very quick announcement as well. Seoul Global has a monthly learning practice forum where it brings different speakers. So that, and I'd love for you all to also jump in onto these forums as well, so that you can meet all these prominent players and prominent practitioners. We'll need to figure out, Luca, how some of them can be invited as part of these sessions, so that you all can also meet who are the other practitioners in this field and what their practice has been like and what they've been doing. Tuanan, how about you start the ball rolling? Are you ready to say something?
Yes, actually, I do enjoy listening to what you have shared, Luca and Peter and also Sheila. I think like for today, what you have shared, just especially when it's come to me like a clearer awareness of different groups in the soul body, like consultant and practitioner and researchers. I think that is the beauty of the communities, right? We have different experience, and that's how we come and share our practice and learning, and that's how we enrich our experience and knowledge together. I mean, for me, I see myself as a very baby person to the work, especially compared to three of you and also some of you here. I have learned about the 5 disciplines many years ago from Sheila, and then also I also do a lot of researches and readings from the soul communities and also the Peter Senge work as well. So in terms of knowing, somehow I can say I can know, but in terms of practice, I would acknowledge that I'm not really deep or good practitioner yet. But in some way, I mean, in the past, with the experience with Sheila and also my application with the committee as well, I see is a holistic approach to the organization and also to the social issue, that kind of thing. So that's how I keep engaged in these communities and try to deepen my learning as well. My job for now, I work in for the e-commerce platform in the CEO office. The good thing about this is about when I can access to different data and also understanding how different function works. I think the challenge personally that I'm facing is that how I or we can apply these tools in the corporate world. In the way that we go through the process, understanding the current realities, and also understand the systemic the issue in the systemic way, and how we can try for the result. When I'm saying the challenge is about the timing, right? Especially in the e-commerce industry, everything is very fast, and the competitor is out there, and we have to compete each other in the very fast way. So some way we don't have time to reflect, to look, to connect, or to understand. We have a lot of data actually, not only in our organization but in the world. Like we have many big data we can access today. But to really understand what is it behind the issue is the other story. So maybe my expectation for myself in the committee as well is how, I mean, I would like to practice more. I would like to see more the application side of the work into the corporate work. At the same time, I also involved in initiative of change still. So it is a very global network from different countries, and the idea is that how we can bring about change in the society, and starting with oneself by the deep inner listening. So there are different areas. We talk about diversity and how to build trust across diversity, and we also talk about ethical business, and then also talk about environment sustainability as well. So there are many people, there's a whole global network. Many is good, amazing people. They work on different things and address different issues in the society. So I do see the LO work is bring the values to the system as well. We talk about change, but then how much we understand the system behind that drive our realities for now, and this understanding need to be seen, yeah, so that we can sustain our change longer. Even our organization, we also facing our own issue in terms of structure as well. So basically, so coming to the communities, I look forward to learn from you how you practice your work in the real world. And at the same time, of course, we share our knowledge and understanding each other's about whatever topics we are having. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's good for me to get back to the team and get to know everyone here. Thank you for creating the space.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Fanan, as I was listening to you, if one of the things that I've known about this practice is within your organization, if you can get into a space where you are doing some level of teach or training within the space you are at, that's where you can begin to see how you can communicate some of these tools to the organization or the industry that you're part of. So getting into that space does help. Okay, so I picked up on that one. So if you can think about how that can work for you. Two, a lot of times we say we want to see change happen. The difference is if change will happen regardless. I mean, the way humans are and when we work with a system, meaning how things are interrelated with each other, wherever that system is and it has an impact on us, we will find our ways to do something about it. The difference is that when we do the change, are we working purely balancing, or are we able to see the reinforcing and work with it as a reinforcing? Okay. Now, when we don't see that entire causal structure, that's my cat. If we don't see the entire causal structure, we end up tweaking that so-called systemic relationship. We end up doing a lot of balancing, a lot of corrections. And you may find after a few years, correcting exactly the opposite way of the way you would have done it previously. I'm sure by now at this age, you may have even noticed that, if not from your own experiences for others, that at one point they corrected it in one particular way, only to find after several years and unknown to them, they corrected exactly the opposite way, but that's because they didn't realize what the systemic issue was. Okay, so if you're dealing with any kind of change, first understand what is the nature of the systemic relationship that's happening, and then you make a conscious choice whether you want to do balancing or whether you want to work with its reinforcing nature. But you make the choice consciously, not reacting to it. Does that make sense? Okay. So the more you can deepen the practice of the 5 disciplines, not just the respective tools, not just the ladder, not just fixes that backfire, but know how to move from one discipline and one tool to another. The better we are against all of those 5 disciplines and all of those tools, the better we're able to see these systemic relationships, these causal structures, and the more we are able to be conscious of whether we want to apply a balancing or a reinforcing solution to the issue. All right. So I would say consciously, as much as yes, you would have come across the 5 disciplines, but deepening the practice of the tools is very important for us to be able to get there. All right. So just watch out for that. Thank you for that share.
Thank you.
I don't know whether I'll have time to share, but what I'd like to see happen at some point is we agree on a particular day in the month where we can meet. If I have to meet the group twice in a month so that we share the same tool, in case you miss one, you can still find another session to meet. And then have these practices, have these deepening of these tools. I would share case studies of what I've gone through. I love to hear others also share theirs, but we take a particular tool and go deeper in its practice. Okay. So if that will help, let's see how that can help us develop this. We just need to agree on knowing where is that commitment, and then we can practice that. Who's next? Huda or Tam?
Hi. I think
Hi, Huda.
yes. Why am I joining this? I think number one, to keep me updated, especially about how the system, to understand the complexity, to understand the conflict. I'm talking about what I am facing in my reality, whether it is uh, in the organization level or in the society or in the country. And then number two, I like to, well, I can say I didn't understand all about what is happening about the fifth discipline. I only remember from Sila the conversation, understand, or whether this is what do you call it? Whether this is growing or going down or going up, something like that. So next, I think when I heard from Peter, I think I'm very interested to understand what you are doing, especially in working with education. My work is also related to education, peace education. I'm also working with the schools, with the university. Sometimes I find hopeless. Us, everything is working, but it is not, it is not solving the problem. For example, I'm talking about corruption. I think I lost my documents, Sila, when you talk about corruption in this country. whether people here is contributing to the corruption, making it worse, or making it into the systemic, and we didn't change anything. I think that's what make me awake, and I need to find a tools or community to learn with. As well as also education, where the education leading to, uh, uh, where is what is the education related to the corruption, whether this is part of the system, giving solution, or being part of the problem. I don't know. I think I make it complex myself. So I need to learn and I need to read all your case study. And the last point that I heard from Sila, where we discussed about the unemployment, also I need to learn. And I found that there is part of the family, part of the role of the father is also contributing to unemployment. The more the father dysfunction, the more the children will be trapped into the unemployment. So that's what I got from you, Sheila, from our last conversation.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that's why I didn't read all the books yet or your website. I
Yes.
forgot. So I need to be,
Yes.
I need to be in solid time or in the focus space to understand all what is has been learned or been discussed. And I'm keen to in touch with everybody who is has network in Jakarta or in Indonesia, especially as Indonesia is, is growing
Mhm.
economically, but corruption is also growing. So we need to bring critical questions into this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Somebody wanted to say something?
Oh, just
Peter?
asking, Huda, you're
Yes?
in Jakarta?
I'm in Bandung.
Oh, in Bandung. Okay. I can connect you to somebody in Jakarta who is very into learning organization and also
Yes.
especially system awareness. They run a school themselves.
Oh, what's good?
I can't remember, it's in Indonesian Bahasa Malay. Yeah, it's a private
Right.
school they run on their own. Yeah, they are also very well linked to British International School, who is very forefront in learning organization, especially in system awareness. So a lot of their teachers there are very well trained also in the area. Yeah, so you do have a network plus other network also. There's also a group of people in Jakarta dealing with facilitation as well as Theory U, right? The Theory U system is actually located just across Chinatown area. I can't remember what diversity in. I'll just miss the name. Yeah, the person who runs it is Franco. But I think they shifted some of their operation to Bali after the G20 opened. Yeah. Because Bali become the center for the Theory U. Yeah. I'll connect you to them.
Great, good. So this is why I say Peter is a wonderful resource, and he's so well connected to the region as well. Corruption, just to say a few things top of my head, corruption is like divorces. So let me try and explain what I'm saying by this. People and young persons, old persons, if you listen to the radio, let me turn it as knobs on the radio. And if we turn up the volume on divorces, yes, lots of stories around how couples don't get along and what they did and how they did it. And very soon you'll find you have more people who know what not to do because they don't know what to do. Make sense? Is that okay? So if we hear stories about divorces, what should we be doing? Because that's your escalation archetype. In an escalation archetype, when a conflict is rising, how do you deal with an escalation archetype? You don't react. Don't spotlight it. Don't give it attention. Huda, are you able to hear? Because I see you're moving. Yes. So when you are seeing something that is not working, don't give it the spotlight. So what do you need to then say? For example, if I go back to divorces, what is the volume that has been turned down? So the volume that has been turned up on the radio is how divorces happen, how things work, what couples are saying, what couples are doing, and isn't it? What's the volume we are not turning up? What is it we are not listening to? And after a while, we believe all couples are in divorces because that's the only story we hear. What is it we're not listening to? After some time, you don't hear of couples who have made it work because the story sensationalizes those that don't work. So the volume that on the radio that says the good stories, so the stories of how things actually work in marriages, that volume, if it gets softened because the volume on divorces and conflicts and arguments are increasing, this volume will shut down. Does that make sense? Is that okay? So watch this volume being shut down and let that volume increase because it takes up airwaves. This one has to shrink. Does that make sense? Okay. So when you're dealing with something that is not forthcoming, not the way that would be helpful, is to, first of all, not give it the attention. Don't throw spotlights on it. Because the more you throw spotlights on it, others say, well, that's a wonderful way to get attention. And so they themselves jump onto that bandwagon. So don't give it attention. Don't pay attention. That's your escalation archetype. Don't react to it. Instead, find ways to showcase examples of how things have worked despite not being involved in corruption. Is that okay? Corruption didn't start with the hand that received it. corruption also was started by the hand that gives it, because it's competing against another hand. That's what it's seeing. There's a competition they're fighting. And that's why they sometimes initiate corruption. It's not the one who receives. Okay, so don't spotlight it, the ones that are receiving and giving, because there's a systemic issue behind it, which is competition and the escalation archetype. Don't spotlight it. So anytime you see an escalation archetype, what do? You obviously get rattled. You want to talk about it, is to shut yourself out of it. Don't let it grow. Okay, don't give it attention. Almost turn your back to it, because when you turn your back to it, then it's like saying, oh, okay, what I did didn't get attention. What must I do to get attention? And that's where you turn up the volume on behaviors and attitudes that would, when things get done, and they didn't have to get involved in corruption to do so. Showcase those stories and how they did it. And you'll see it will bring up, because what corruption is dealing with is issues of fear of failure, fear of rejection, ultimately fear of death. So when you spotlight it, you're spotlighting these fears. But then we're not spotlighting enough issues around belief, self-belief, belief in myself, as well as belief in others as us. We're not spotlighting that. And we need to give that more attention. So how do you deal with divorce rates rising in the country? Pay attention to examples of couples who have made it work in their marriage. What made it work? Give spotlight on that. Does that make sense? Then this one will die down in the process. You don't have to attack this. You don't fight fire with fire. Okay, it's a classic escalation archetype. That's the story that's going on there. Now, these are things, as you yourself deepen your practice on the 5 disciplines, and particularly the system archetypes, you become much more aware and sensitive which archetypes are at play. And each archetype has got their own antidote, has got their own ways of dealing with it. And you know then how to pick up on that issue. That makes sense? Is that okay? So I would say deepen your practice on the disciplines so that you become clear what to do, what not to do. And sometimes what not to do is more powerful than what you do. Does that make sense? And imagine the resources we save from that process that can be channeled to do other things. Okay. So let's find ways to continue to deepen that practice. System archetypes, ladder of inference, team learning, but also clarifying personal mastery and shared vision. What do we want? If we don't want this, then what do we want? Those help you to sharpen as to what to look for. Okay. Tom, are you ready?
Hey, hi. Yeah, from me joining this again after stopping for a while, I was just thinking to apply it in my work, because right now in my organization they had a lot of changes, and like we bought a lot of companies, right, the smaller one, and the issue is that we also hire like the staff of that company, but the issue is that after a while they were spinning out. Because again, like they have their own mental model, we have our own mental model, and then we have vision, but we don't have the shared vision. So like, even though we try to really practice the team learning, it didn't work because of course we don't have the same mental model and shared vision. So yeah, there's a lot of like struggling, and then like fighting, and then conflict, and a lot of costs also involved in this whole process. So I was thinking,
I like the way you use the 5 disciplines to diagnose what's going on. So that's beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah, that's
the
what I want
language
to
you
do.
can use.
And it's good for me in a way that because I handle the data analytics part as well, and also the process. So I have the data to deep dive what is going on, and also like I can talk to different people, approach different people to understand what is like the underneath issues for the organization. So that is with my work, and for my personal learning.
Are you in any position to do training for your company?
I do actually, yeah, in some part of the sales organization, I do some training for them.
Is
as
it
well.
a professional space, or you can also do training on like the 5 disciplines with them?
I think more right now on the professional space, but I'm also trying to sneak in some of the concept and then the archetypes in there. So hopefully after a while we can talk more about that, and we can have some training in that capability.
Sure.
On the personal learning, I did join you and Randall a while ago, and Huda as well, but then I spin out because of the personal matters. So coming back in this time, I really hope that we can maintain it for a longer time, and also like maybe we can change the way we do the discussion with each other. For example, like maybe one person can be in charge of one archetype or one law or one discipline for one point, so that like we take ownership, we take leadership, like take turn to do that, rather than just depending on Sila, on you, and most of the time to keep maintain the space. So
I like
yeah,
that. That does make sense, so that you'll do your readings before you come for the session itself. So I like that. Yeah, good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it.
Good. Anybody else? Wahid?
Thank you. Thank you all. Just like to add what Tuanan said just now. He said that he's in baby steps. So if he's in baby step, then I just want to say I just feel reborn again. Very long while since I connected myself personally in yellow space, especially with you, and good to see Peter again virtually, at least for now, right? And I'm in the learning and development, so I do program design, I do deliver and facilitate some of the programs myself, like what Tan has done, right? Okay, I managed to bring the tools subtly, right? Peter Xia just now said, right, we need to catch the attention within 30 minutes, okay? Else we're going to lose them. But knowing the fact that the tools need to be uncovered a little bit more, I just came the surface, like an introduction, like an awareness. Tools like the ladder of inference, the relative tension, right? And I still remembered I was working with a couple of the teams or divisions to develop the strategy for that particular year. I used the VDM, the Vision Development Matrix, that
Oh wow!
You taught me a couple of years ago, right? Using that matrix you work. But what I wasn't able to do is piece all these things together into all the 5 disciplines. Especially moving deeper into the system archetypes, right? Perhaps I need to deepen this understanding. So maybe this is one of the main reason I want to rejoin back this community. Right? Learn from all of us, right? Based on the case studies that you have presented, and I'd like to also maybe catch up with Peter over coffee on me. Okay, all right. Especially working with leaders on this subject. I mean, from one organization to another organization to another organization, 4, 5 years, 6, 7 years, right? I'm seeing the same thing over and over again, right? Yeah. So how do we bring this work to them, especially to get their ears, right? And perhaps like what Peter also was saying just now, going back to basic. I think we need to do that at a certain point, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is what I really hope to learn from this community again, be part of it, especially when you put all those tools in the case studies and makes more practical. Rather than, you know, what is this? I catch no ball. What are you talking about? Kind of thing, right? Yeah. Real life, real case study, whether it's organization, whether it's happening in Cambodia or Uda was talking about corruption just now, right? Okay. So how do you bring this context into practicality? Yeah. Thank you.
Good. I wanted to share something with you all very quickly. Just a second. I'm going to share the screen. And here is the outline that, can you all see?
Yes, can see.
Solmia location, Solmia. Solmia means Seoul, Middle East and Africa. That's your Dubai, your Kuwait, your Morocco, down all the way down to South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, that whole space. They're not including Europe. So this is a teaser session that I've designed for them. Right now, I'm at a space where I'm inviting some of the other practitioners in the space to take on some of these topics so that I don't need to do all of them. But I'll be there at every session. But for some of you, you may be familiar with them. But see, going through this, my discussion with Luca, I have put down about 10 topics. But given we also have people who will be practitioners or learners on this journey who've done their own journey and their own expertise, we will also invite them to also share their learning journeys. We think this would probably take about 2 years to complete. And for each session, maybe it's for about 2 hours. It's meant to be a teaser. So in the case of Middle East and Africa, it's slightly different. What's happening there is they may have heard about the 5 disciplines. They may have, they don't know yet what they actually mean. They might even misinterpret mental models as if it is personal mastery. Some misunderstandings could be there around, usually that tends to happen at the beginning. So this was intended for going a little deeper, getting your toes wet, getting your fingers dirty, but not your hands. Enough to get them interested to say, yeah, I think I want to learn more about this. It's just to whet their appetite, to get them motivated, so to speak, to want to go and read the book. And then at some point, if they want to go deeper, they may engage back with consultants or trainers in the field to go deeper with them. That's where this program is happening. It is not a continuous program. It doesn't cover all the topics. If I was to cover all the topics, if we were to cover all the topics, it's more than 10 sessions. And I think some of you already realized that. In the case of the group when I did with Peter and Luca, we met weekly every Sunday for easily over 6 months. Was it 6 months, Peter, Luca? Or was it longer than that?
Longer, yes.
Yeah, about 6 to 8 months, almost a year. We met weekly and we were going through it. So that's how deep this work can get. Usually I would introduce the tool and then members in the team may look at the tool and then they may react to it as to perhaps from their own experiences or from their own understanding of what the tools are. In the next session, I would then typically then have them recap what was done in the previous session. Any thoughts they have on where their thinking is, if it has changed, what has changed for them. So we go through a process like that, but we did it weekly for 8 to 10 months. That's how many weeks? Anybody can do a quick count? Assuming 4 weeks in a month, and you did that for 10 weeks, that's like 40 sessions.
Anyway, we continue also without Sheila, because we met every week for, I guess, more than 2 years. So exactly. We reached a sort of autonomy in the need of having someone who teaches us.
Yes. So the issue here is, yes, at least maybe 20 sessions or so upfront. Give it some focus. You will get a bit more deeper with this work. You get a deeper understanding of this work, and you find it much more easier to navigate in this space and not feel that you've fallen out or not sure if you're still in it. All right, you will get to that space. So that's really what's required. I'm open to the idea to do this on a fortnightly basis. It doesn't have to be weekly. I'm also open to the idea of to do it monthly. The only thing with monthly sessions is it becomes a bit too far in between. You don't keep, the connection to the pieces. You may find it harder to reconnect. So at least on a fortnightly basis. At a time like this works for me. If it can also work for you. So usually I put my Sunday mornings anytime between my 10 and my 1 p.m. So you can find a slot anywhere between just during this period. On alternate Sundays, I spend time with the Europe group. Then I can do the other Sunday with Asia, because that's also a friendly time zone for you. But that's provided you can keep your Sunday. What time would that be for you? Would that be around 4, 5, 6 in the evening for you? Tuanan? Huda is not here. Wahid? If it's my 10 o'clock, I think it's your 6 o'clock, isn't it?
It's 4.
Oh no, it's 4 o'clock.
Yes, 4. Yeah.
Between 3 and 4
No,
o'clock
sorry, 3 p.m. Vietnam, Indonesia.
3 p.m. And
Singapore.
Singapore would be
4.
around 4 p.m.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm open to during that time slot between your 3 and 6 on alternate Sundays. So Luca, which Sundays do I come on with you? Was it the 2nd and the 4th Sundays?
Sorry, can you repeat, please?
I'm just checking which Sundays am I with you? Is it the 2nd Sunday and the 4th Sundays?
Yes, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I have to check it, because it's not anymore on a base of once on 2 weeks, but it's monthly based, because
Yes.
before we just had 1 on 2 weeks. So the
Yes.
shift through the months was, yes, I guess it should be the 2nd and the 4th Sunday.
The 2nd and the 4th Sundays. Yes, it's easier for me if I can lock it in, knowing that this 2nd Sunday or the 1st Tuesday or whatever, then I make sure that I don't commit anything during that period. Is that okay? So my 1st Sunday or my 3rd Sundays can work for me. And if there's a 5th Sunday, it's a bonus. All right. So those are possibilities. So if you wanted to keep your 1st and your 3rd Sundays from your times between 3 and 6, then that's a possible slot we can use. My weekdays, usually we finish quite late. So I tend to finish at 6. I start at my 8 o'clock. So I tend to have rather long days during the week. So it's not that easy during the week, but Sundays is better. Saturdays, we are still open for business. So sometimes I do get customers who are busy during the week. They come in over the weekend, and I'm also starting my cooking classes. I don't do the cooking classes myself. We have brought in chefs. And so we help people to learn how to do restaurant style cooking right in their home. So they come in on Saturdays. But Sundays, I've kept it free from my other organization. That's where I am at the point. I'm happy to continue to see you all deepen your practice on the disciplines and your tools, but more importantly for me, I think it's also seeing this community build itself, not just within its own space, but amongst each other, because you all are so close to each other. It's also easier for you all to work and collaborate with each other. But I would also love to see us to also develop case studies. Give yourself at least 6 months or so. Deepen your practice on the 5 disciplines, and in about 6 months or so, you should be able to see more and more of these case studies. And I love to do an actual case study either with Vietnam or with Indonesia or even with Singapore. I'd love to see that happen. Okay. Persons like Luca and myself, these are documentations that we'd love to also do, so that we can also carry on and showcase how does this practice look like. Okay. What do you see are things we need to consider before we do something like this? What are the practical logistics on the ground for us to do something like this? I see Huda has dropped off. Indonesia, I'm inclined to handle Indonesia separately because of their network issues. So I don't want Vietnam and Singapore to come on the same sessions as I do with Vietnam because of their internet issues. So if we have to slow down because of that, it's not affecting the rest of you. But Vietnam and Singapore, and perhaps even India, can come together as a group, so that and I see your internet connections are a bit more stable for us to be able to do this without having those issues. Okay. So I can try and organize a separate one. Okay, good. I can try and organize a separate one with Indonesia. Okay, so if you're looking at Vietnam, Singapore, and possibly India may join in, what do you see are logistics on the ground that we need to pay attention to?
Hi, Sila. I actually, when you talk about Indonesia, because our group is quite small already, right? So my main concern would be when you separate Indonesia, we will not have a lot of people in the group anymore, and I think it will affect the group dynamic, energy as well. That is one point. And another point is that I'm wondering, because right now we have different group for Asia, and then we have Africa and Middle East, and then we have Europe as well. Is there any chance that we actually, maybe one per quarter or something, we have the share experience, the share learning between the big continents groups, so that we can actually also learn from each other, and then Q&A and whatever?
Sure, yes. Okay, so here's where I am. With Middle East and Africa, we've noticed the sessions tend to happen in my evenings, which means from around my 6 o'clock, my 7 o'clock, which would be around midnight and 1 a.m. for Asia. So they don't tend to have it on Sundays. So that's my one issue. So that's why I thought with Asia, I'd do it on a different time slot. But it doesn't mean in the future, as more of us are on a regular process with each other, we will find occasions when we can bring the different groups together. That can happen, okay? With taking Indonesia out of the story, my thinking is only because of the internet connections. Because like right now, I'm noticing a message from Wazim, and Huda, as you notice, has dropped off already. You notice also when Huda was speaking, there was a tendency that the screen was freezing. And I didn't want such internet issues be a reason why the rest of us find ourselves slowing down in this process. That's why I was just keeping Indonesia out of the story. Not to say that they're not going to be part of it. If I have to deal with them separately, I'm not bogging the rest of you down with the internet issues, that's all. For me, I can handle them separately, it's fine. So that's where I'm going with this. Of course, I would love the likes of Wahid, if possible, to join in, or Peter to join in with Indonesia as well. But with this other group from Vietnam, there's also Singapore, and I'm also thinking India. So there are 3 other groups that I can see join in with this group: Singapore, Vietnam, India. And it's possible over time we may see others also join in, possibly Hong Kong or Taiwan, maybe China, Australia, right? So once we develop a rhythm, it's possible that we might also see others in that area begin to join in as well. How does that sound to you, Tam?
Yeah, I think it logics. Thank you for your explanation.
It's okay. Now, Tom, your case is unique. You're in Netherlands. You're practically in Europe. You should be able to join in the Middle East sessions whenever they have it, because it's more in time with your time as well. So we'll find a way to make sure you're on the mailing list so that you can also meet up with those in this part of the world as well.
I would
Is that
appreciate
fine
that.
with
Thank
you?
you.
Yes,
Yes,
we
thank
can
you
do
so much.
that. Right now is just to build a container for Asia, so that when that container is somewhat stable, we will also bring in others and find ways for you to connect with others as well.
Awesome. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
You're welcome. Huda, Tuanan, you raised your
Yes.
hand.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila. So three things.
You're welcome.
Number one is, yeah, on the logistic part, the Zoom setup, that kind of thing. I'm happy to support as well, for our communities.
And thank you for today. It's wonderful.
Number two is, maybe the questions. So for each session, we have 2 sessions per month, right? For each session, do we need to identify what could be the focus for the session, or this would be more on the free flow sharing? Yeah, so that's the question. Number 3 is
Okay.
more on the practical side for the next meeting, right? So so we said that we would meet for the first and the third Sunday of each month. Yeah, so
Yeah,
probably for Feb.
that's my time slot.
Yeah, for Feb, then we need to decide how to start as well.
Yes, that's right. So if it is the first and the third week, that would be the 5th and the 19th.
Yeah.
5th and the 19th. I would say give ourselves maybe a week or so that we can reach out to others to see who wants to join in. With who is there, we can start. And to your question around what is our focus and topic, this is a starting point. My intention is to take each session at least one tool in each session. And this serves as a guide. The other guide that I use is this, and I'll copy it onto the chat. This is a guide that I use for, if I was to run the program for a year or so, it shows you what's being covered during that year-long program. And it shows in more detail the flow in which the tools are being covered. So I'm showing that in the background, what they are. So they will act as a guide as to what will be covered during this period. So did all of you open that link? Because I'd like you to keep that link. Can somebody put it up on WhatsApp as well?
Yeah, how we do?
Put that link on the WhatsApp group, so that you all can use that as your guide. So in at least for the 6 months or so, this will act as a guide. Okay. Now, whilst we have the tool being shared, I like Tom's idea. Let's have in this table and this setup, have somebody act as sort of who would have read ahead of the others, who would have started off by leading by saying what this tool is about. And I will come in to say, okay, well, here's what you need to think about it. Here's what you need to consider. Here's what it's not. So I can play that role. The other thing that I'd like to do in this space is to share examples, to share stories, to share how it's being used. All right. So that is what I see happening during these sessions. All right. Did somebody share that link on the group?
Yeah, I just share on the WhatsApp group. So
fantastic. Okay, so that's to guide us as to what would be the scope of the sessions. I think what we will attempt to do is I will do what has happened here, or we'll create a group, like a page like this, share that link. It's on Google Drive, and I'd like you to come up and say which topic would you all like to do the pre-lead. So when you do the pre-lead, you do the reading, you come in and say, here's what I've read, or here's what I understand, here's what I think this is about. What do you all think? That's the scope and the process that we would do. So it gives you an opportunity to. So I'd love volunteers. You'll come in and say, I think I'd like to do a lead in this space. Feel free to do that. And also I'll create this document on Google Drive, share that with you all, and you all can then volunteer your spaces. Then I would say give ourselves a week or two for you all to get back to your respective communities. I would also reach out to India and to see if they can also join in those dates, but we'll set in those dates as well. Okay, and thank you for offering the Zoom, Tuanan. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, welcome.
Did I cover all your logistics?
Yes. Sorry for
Okay.
so the next one is on 5th February, right?
So 5th February, I'm thinking it's too close because that's practically next week. I'm suggesting rather to start on the 19th.
Okay.
And use the 5th and the 12th and these next 2 weeks to reach out to your communities, let them know this is happening, and then invite them to also join the session.
Okay.
All right, I see Wahid has put up his hand.
Yes.
Yes, Wahid.
Thanks, Sheila. I think I like the idea, what you said just now, for us to probably introduce the tools, as we go along. And then when it comes to something deeper, you or Peter or even Luca can take us through, right? Yeah. I think we start 2 weeks later or two, was it 19? I think we'll be fine. Next week's a little bit too tight for us to move our schedule around. And so that just a quick question. So this kind of session is normally 90 minutes, 1.5 hours?
Yes, I would say at least an hour and a half, at least.
Right.
At least an hour.
Yeah, I think that's a good time, or a good duration. Another thing, when you say that we could reach out to our community again, of course we'll do that in our own region. But are you open to having new curious people in these kind of calls, right, that can spark their thinking? Who knows, right?
I don't see why not. I think they can. Because where we are right now, I won't say we're very deep along. So even in the course of this year, if new people jump in and jump out, let them be. It's okay.
Yeah, like how I started many years ago, right? About curiosity, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then here I am today after many years, right? And some people do drop off, then let them drop off. They will drop in again.
Yes,
right.
Sure. Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Okay, thanks.
Did that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so you'll reach out to your communities. What do you think you'll need? We'll just take another 5, 10, 15 minutes and then we should be through. For you all to reach out to your communities, what do you think you'll need? What information would you all need in order so that you all are coming in because you've heard of me or you've heard something about the 5 disciplines. I'm assuming your initial reach out are to people perhaps knows me or knows this work. Yes, so that way it's a little easier for you all to do the reach out rather than somebody who's totally new. Let them come organically, let them come naturally, okay? So perhaps if it's a reach out to within your own community, what do you need?
Sheila?
Yes, Wahid.
Can I have this thing that you're showing right now? So it gives them an understanding of what they're coming for each session. And then we can focus that conversation around that topic and for that particular week.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create another page and it will say, it won't say Seoul, but it'll just say Asia practitioners or learning LOP and Asia, right? Is that okay with y'all? Okay, it will have something similar. I'd like you all to populate it and you all can share that link with your community. I can also put in my profile so that you all can also use that as a way to share with the community as well. Do you need anything else? Well, give it a try, give it a go. Usually what happens is it's the stories that creates these linkages. So when you discover something or when you learn something, obviously when you talk, it's coming from your personal experiences. That's what connects others to you and to what is happening. So don't expect it. You have to fill up the room. There's no such thing. Come there to fill up your own room, so to speak. Come in to want to understand yourself. Don't worry who's there, who's not there. Enjoy the process, enjoy what you are picking up, and ask questions and clarify as you go along. And that should begin the process of going. I'm going to take it upon myself to reach out to India to see if those dates can work for them. There are a couple of people that I've been in touch with in India. So let's see if they can also join in. With other countries, gradually, I'm sure we will see. With Indonesia, I will do it also on the same Sundays, but just at a different time slot with them. Okay, so that we try and see at some point we can try and merge the groups. Tanan, you need to get back to your conference. How is it going in the conference in India?
Yeah, I need to go back. It's going well so far. It's starting. We have around 80 people from different part of the world. Actually, the theme is about emergent future. Yeah, quite a very inspiring thing. Yeah.
Are you also speaking?
This time I'm not. Actually, the key purpose is to visit friends after so many years, and by accident I was forced into the conference, but I'm happy to be a part of it. Yeah, so not this time, maybe next time when I come back.
Yes. And how is the community in Vietnam that I met the last time? What's happening to them?
People is doing well. I mean, like we still keep this network of friends. So basically, many growing up after many years. So people like Tom is getting married soon. Some other people getting married.
Yes.
But
I see Tom visited Vietnam and I saw some familiar faces when she was visiting them. So that was nice to see.
Yeah. So maybe in the future, let's see how it's evolved. Then happy to have you, Sheila, and also our friends here. Maybe we can do something in Vietnam or Southeast Asia.
That would be wonderful. I'm sure they'll be happy to see that happen. Good. All right. So here's what I'll do. I will create this page. I'll just give it some thought. I'll do another one for LOP in Asia. We'll just keep our same name for now. And I would love for those who are in this group here to populate and say, let me volunteer this topic or that topic for me to do the pre-readings. And then let's aim for the 19th. The 19th is an introductory session. So I may just lead on that one just to set the pace for what this is all about. And then you all can come in and do the other topics. How does that sound? Is that okay? All right. And then if you all can, I will also put in my profile link as well, so that when you all share back with the community, you can share this document plus my profile with them. So that use that as a way to think if that would interest them to join the session. And I'll do a separate exercise with Indonesia as well. Okay. At some point, I'd like to see if they can combine, but let's see what's really going on there. Peter, with Singapore, what do you see are the logistics? Wahid, what do you see are the logistics? Is Wahid here?
Well, you just left.
Oh, is it? Okay. I see Wahid trying to do some of the logistics for Singapore. But Peter, you're also welcome if you can speak with him and Randall to say how can this news reach out to other practitioners in Singapore who wants to deepen their understanding of the 5 disciplines, both the tools as well as the practices. Would you speak with the two of them, Wahid and Randall?
Yeah, okay. And also I drop you a note in the WhatsApp about the seminar for SOL Singapore.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. We can do it separately.
Which one? Okay, no problem. Is that one with Purani?
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
So we
Yes,
want to
I will get around to it by today, yes.
Yeah, okay.
By today, I should be getting back to you all on this one.
Okay.
I still like to keep end February. Is it too late for end February?
Should be okay.
It should be fine, huh? Okay, that'll be good because I've locked in that date for me. All right, I'll do that. If you don't mind, speak to the two if it's in the course of this week so that you can work out the logistics for Singapore. We had lots of people who've gone through LOPN, but you also have your community in Seoul, Singapore. See if they also want to be a part of something like this.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, all right. So we'll set it for the 19th of February to start the ball rolling, just after Valentine's Day. It was nice seeing all of you all, but more importantly, just to hear your voices again. So that was very nice. All of you sound the same. So that's really wonderful. I really enjoyed the time with all of you. I never forget. I may seem far, but I never forget. So it means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And we look forward to the next gathering.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.
Have a good Sunday
Thank
and take care. See you next time.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Anytime, just feel free to drop me, just feel